In the ramp up to the college football season, this always gets a bunch of people riled up. The top team in each state entering the season, and we're going to hit some of the big ones, including bottom right, the Sunshine State, which is Florida State's state going into this season, according to our college football writer David Cobb. You can see the whole list and explanations at CBSSports.com. We're going to dive into a few of them with a couple of our Cover 3 guys. Chip Patterson joins us along with former Florida State great Danny Kanell. And Danny, I've heard more hype coming out of Miami this season than Tallahassee, but your Noles still come out on top. Is there any doubt for you?
No, I think you have to feel like Florida State, I think, is the safest bet to make right now if you were choosing a team that owns the state of Florida. Miami might be at the end of the season, but coming off a year where they were undefeated, bringing in DJU to kind of provide some stability at quarterback, once again going in the portal with several Alabama additions, a defense which should be pretty nasty. You feel like worst case scenario for Florida State is 9-3. Now with Miami, there's expectations, but this could be a team that could potentially be 10-2 or 11-1, but there's also the reality that we haven't seen this team deliver on expectations in quite some time. So I think overall health of Florida State, where the program is, where Mike Norvell is both hitting the portal and recruiting, I think it's unequivocally Florida State that they're the best team in the state as it sits right now.
Yeah, let's go away from the hype and let's just look at the hard numbers, because right now, when I check the odds to win the Atlantic Coast Conference in 2024, it's not Miami at the top of that board. It is the Florida State Seminoles. And so there might be a lot of hype around what I do believe is one of the most talented starting 22s that Miami has fielded as an ACC member. That goes all the way back to 2004 for those of you youngins out there. I do think that talented roster still has something to prove. Florida State, on the other hand, the transfer portal additions are ones that we recognize as quality components to Mike Norvell, who has proven to be, according to our own CBS Sports consensus poll, one of the top 10 coaches in college football right now. So Florida State's hold on the state of Florida when it comes to the best team in each state, yeah, there might not be as much hype about their quarterback or as much buzz about the big jump that they're going to take here in 2024. But I mean, just go talk to the odds makers. They are the ACC favorite ahead of both Clemson and Miami.
Let's head up the Atlantic coast to Virginia, an interesting state here because there are a couple group of 5 teams who could be in play for a playoff spot now with this expanded playoff and a guaranteed spot for the highest ranked group of 5. It's Liberty over James Madison, over Virginia Tech, over Virginia. No, they're down. But Danny, what do you think of a group of 5 school getting in and on top of a state that has multiple ACC programs?
I don't like this one. I think Virginia Tech is in a really good spot. Now, if you went back historic, like you were talking about, and said, what about this past year? Then yes, but James Madison lost their coach, and Liberty, as good as they were, they still haven't beaten a Power 5 opponent on that schedule. And then they did get beaten down pretty bad by Oregon in that bowl game. So I would say Virginia Tech is the team that I would give the nod to. What Brent Pry has built up there in Blacksburg is really special. And I like Caden Salter a lot. I mean, he was a buy on Day Trader Danny on Cover 3, which you can check out. I like him a lot, but I do think Kyron Jones is just as talented. I feel better about them being the most solid team in the state right now. But you know what's crazy? Liberty's probably going to run the table again this season with, again, no Power 4 team on the schedule.
Yeah, are you the best relative to your competition, or are you the best relative to a vacuum against the average FBS team? Because when it comes to the way that Liberty would be rated in a power rating standpoint, I think that Liberty, as good as they are, might find themselves looking up at a Virginia Tech. But also, if we're going to consider things like path to a conference championship, Liberty basically has ice skates, as they can just skate right along through the Cayusa and make themselves in the mix to be in the expanded college football playoff. Path to the expanded college football playoff, easier for the Flames. Path to a conference championship, easier for the Flames. But again, if we're just judging this in a vacuum, I think what Kyron Jerome's, a ton of returning starters come back for what is a big year 3 under Brent Pry, I would probably take the Hokies on a neutral field. but that is not a knock on where Jamie Chadwell has this Liberty program, which is poised to go 11-1, 12-0, 13-0 in Conference USA for many years to come.
They are the favorites in that conference, which is looking even different this season with some new members. They do have a stretch of back-to-back games there early in the year that might be their toughest. East Carolina, one of those games to look at. Let's go to Kansas now. A couple of programs there that think they could win this new-look Big 12. Kansas State ends up on top, but Chip, how close is it with Kansas?
Oh, Jayhawks are nipping at those heels. Kansas State has had this nice, easy life of being able to be the top dog in the state. Chris Kleiman comes in. They've maintained that consistency. He arguably even raises their level. But what Lance Leipold has been able to do as he has come in, just like he has done at multiple places before in his career, is build something from the ground up where you see the progression. And last year, winning 9 games was absolutely the proof positive that they made the right decision to be able to take over after Les Miles left that place smoldering many years ago. And so as you return Jalen Daniels, as you return that great 1-2 punch of Devin Neal and Henshaw in the backfield, I think that the Jayhawks are going to have an opportunity to really challenge the Wildcats. Now, again, if we're going to take this back to a only this year's team, ignore everything else, I do think Kansas State, with everything that they could be with Avery Johnson at the quarterback, I would pick Kansas State in a head-to-head, but I bet that this Kansas State-Kansas debate is as close as it has been in years, probably all the way back to the Mark Mangino era, if you ask me.
Totally agree. This is more a testament to Lance Leipold and the job he's done. And I know Kansas State owns the state, and I wouldn't argue against it. But the fact that it's even a debate is really a tribute to what Lance Leipold has built. And don't forget what he took over, or what was left behind when he took over after spring ball. I mean, this was an absolute disaster. The fact that they're even in that conversation is really remarkable. And not to mention, I know and Kansas State is in a better spot overall as a program. They're still like the second best favorite to win the Big 12 this season. Kansas a little bit more distant, coming in about 5th or 6th than most preseason predictions coming in there. But this is about what Kansas has been, and I don't think they're going away anytime soon. This is not a fluke, and I think they're going to continue to close that gap. But for now, it's Kansas State's state.
This next state we're going to hit is the reason why my co-host Amanda Guerra left the studio, because she's afraid that she would probably get canceled if she did this segment, because her Sooners lose out to the hated in-state rivals from Stillwater. Oklahoma State is on top of that state. Chip, are you buying that?
No. I'm not. I am not buying that. I would not take that going into this season. I would only recognize that if we were simply comparing who won the game more recently. Oklahoma State, of course, making it to the Big 12 title game when Oklahoma did not, even as last year was a step forward. But I would take the Sooners in a head-to-head against Oklahoma State this year. And I'm saying this as somebody who's driving the Oklahoma State bus as maybe a good value play to win the Big 12. But I think I listen to actions. And I know that doesn't make sense, but when I listen to actions, I'm watching Oklahoma let Dylan Gabriel walk out that door and go to Oregon and allow this offense to be turned over to Jackson Arnold. And while Jackson Arnold showed some of his floor, holding on to the ball too long, turning it over in the early stages of the bowl game, you also saw him be resilient. You also saw a lot of the reasons why he is the future of Oklahoma's offense. I'll take Oklahoma over Oklahoma State heading into 2024, even acknowledging that the Cowboys are a great pick to win the Big 12 as a value price. But this is a Sooners comeback year in that rivalry to me.
I know there's been a lot of computer glitches with airline travel. Is this one of them? Like where there was a graphical error on this? Because I totally agree with you, Chip, that this is Oklahoma State. And shoot, you could even bleed over and take over Texas potentially if this was a greater conversation, especially considering historically where they've been. Yes, Oklahoma State has won 2 out of the last 3 in Bedlam, but before that, 91-20. The Sooners are over the Cowboys in Bedlam. That has been absolute domination. I think the other interesting thing, too, is who has the better record this year. that could be Oklahoma State. And then it goes back to that conversation that Chip was just having about Liberty versus Virginia Tech. Is it relative to the competition you're playing, or is it better overall as a program in totality? So you've got to give the nod to Oklahoma here. I think they're the best team in the state, regardless of what the last couple years have said about Bedlam. I think Oklahoma's healthier for the long haul and for the season.
All right, that's the state of Oklahoma. One more state to go, and I'm going to let Danny go off on this one. It's the great state of Colorado, and Coach Prime gets all the headlines, but they are not on top. And it's not even a power school. It's Air Force #1 in that state, and no Buffaloes.
I love this one because my guy Troy Calhoun was an offensive assistant while I was on the Denver Broncos. And every time I talked to him, I was like, that guy has head coaching material written all over him. And even more so, he is the perfect fit for Air Force as one of the longest tenured coaches in the game. But you want to talk about a perennial power at any level. He has built a consistent winner with the challenges that they have as an academy. To go out there and be that is pretty remarkable. Always in the mix for the Mountain West, and I think they're going to continually keep that going. I can't count on Colorado coming into the season to, kind of pull things together and find magic in a bottle like they did for a couple games last year. I'd rather go with a team that I trust over the course of a 12-game season. The consistency, I think, is there, and it's been that way for some time. So I love the fact that Air Force is the top team in Colorado.
Do you believe?
Apparently not. Apparently not, okay? Because we've got Colorado, we've got Colorado State, but no, it is the Plains. And if we're going to continue to, give some flowers to Troy Calhoun right here, I think what's important is to acknowledge that this is not just a coach who has cornered himself into being a triple option team, a triple option offense. Because what Air Force has done in a way that I think Army is working towards, and maybe even Navy as well, is to finding ways to create explosive plays. And whether that be through the misdirection in the run game, whether that be in more dynamic throwing the ball down the field. Air Force had a lot of injuries last season that kept the Falcons from really competing to being in that top tier of the Mountain West Conference, which I do believe in 2024 will be the highest rated of the Group of 5 conferences. And so if they can get a little bit better injury luck along the way, I think we will see Air Force be right back to where they are the most comfortable, and that's competing for championships in the Mountain West.
Play your little sounder again there, Chip.
Do you believe?
Not in Colorado. Not in Coach Prime this season. Let's thank Chip Patterson and Danny Kanell, and head you guys on over to CBSSports.com, where you can see the whole list, all 50 states, all the best teams in every state, and explanations as to why David Cobb put them there. Our guys pushing back a little bit. More conversation where that came from on the Cover 3 pod with Danny, with Chip, with Tom Fornelli, and others. Download, subscribe today.